Hey guys, it's Julie, and today I'm here with a book review video for you guys. One of my New Year's resolutions was to do more reviews, and so I'm starting the year off right, and I'm going to be talking about the first book that I have finished this year, and that is Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is actually my very first Jane Austen novel. Shocker. I know, I'm not sure why I waited so long because I absolutely loved this book. So this story is actually about Jane Austen's oldest female protagonist, and that is Anne Elliot, who is 27 at the time of this book. But when Anne was 19 years old, she fell madly in love with this man named Frederick Wentworth. They were crazy about each other and they were engaged to be married. Well, Anne's family, and more importantly, her godmother, Lady Russell, persuade Anne to break off the engagement. They just don't think it's a good fit. They don't think that he's worthy of her, really. He has no title, he has no money, and they just don't think that it is a good fit. So Anne does what she thinks is right, and she breaks off the engagement, but she regrets this decision. She never gets over Mr. Wentworth. And 8 years later, Anne's family is no longer doing very well financially. They're in a lot of debt. Her father and her sister have just been spending money like crazy, living this really lavish lifestyle that they didn't have the money for. And so now they are packing up their home that they live in and they're moving from the city to the country. And who would come back into Anne's life but Mr. Wentworth? Although now he's no longer just Mr. Wentworth, he is Captain Wentworth and is a very well-to-do captain in the Navy. And when him and Anne run into each other for the first time, he just treats Anne like a casual acquaintance, like nothing ever happened between them. So do Anne and Mr. Wentworth end up together? Well, you're going to have to read the book to find out because this is going to be a spoiler-free review. But I will say that I absolutely adored this book. So I'll start off with the things that I really liked about it. Number one was I loved Anne as a character. I thought that she was just so smart and sensible, and she really thought about all of the decisions that she makes. She didn't let her emotions rule her. She's pretty much the exact opposite of me, and so I kind of looked up to her as a character. And the other characters in the story, they feel pretty similar about Anne. She's the one that they go to if they're in a crisis. She's the one that they go to for advice. She's just such a level-headed person, and so I really enjoyed her character. I also loved the romance in the story. I thought that it was just so sweet and innocent. There is this letter at the very end of the novel that was just one of the most romantic things that I ever read, and that was definitely one of my favorite things about this book. I also really love Jane Austen's writing. She has this way of taking just simple, everyday things and making them exciting to read about. I mean, there's not a lot of plot going on in this story, but I never lost interest. I was so engaged the entire time, and most of what goes on is just dinner parties and casual encounters and things like that, but she makes those exciting. She makes the everyday life exciting and you want to read about it. And that just really surprised me. I was so happy that her writing wasn't overly descriptive. I found that when I read a lot of classics, typically the writing tends to be really descriptive, and I'm not a huge fan of that style of writing. But Jane Austen's is definitely not like that. It's very easy to read and very easy to get into. I will say what I think helped me get used to the language and everything really quickly was listening to half of this book on audio. I really loved the narration. I thought it was done really well, and I got into the characters and the story so fast. And when I went to pick up the second half of the book and I was actually reading it in physical form, the language was nothing to me. I just flew through it, and it was like I had been reading it all along. I would highly recommend listening to it on audio if you're a little bit hesitant about the language like I was. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. Now, I do have a few criticisms of this story. Number one was I wish just a little bit more would have happened plot-wise. It stays pretty level throughout the entire book. There is not a lot of excitement going on here. Now, it is a pretty short novel, so I think that that helps. I do think that if it would have been longer, that I would have gotten bored in parts of it. But it didn't really get boring. I just wish that there would have just been just a little bit of excitement. I also wasn't a huge fan of one of the love relationships that happens in this book. I feel like it was completely out of the blue. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, and I thought that it was just a way for her to kind of tie up loose ends. So that kind of irritated me a little bit. And I also would have liked if some of the characters would have been just a little bit more likable. I found pretty much every character in this book really unrelatable. I didn't care about what happened to them. I didn't like them as people. I felt that they were just terrible. They were so materialistic and mean and self-centered. And the only character really that I honestly cared about was Anne. And I just wish that there would have just been, I don't know, someone else that I cared for. I mean, Captain Wentworth is okay, and there might have been one more, but overall, most of the characters in this book are very, very unlikable. But overall, though, I really enjoyed this book. I know it sounds like I probably had a lot of criticisms, but honestly, I loved this story. It is definitely going to be something that I revisit. I'm looking forward to reading more Jane Austen in the future. I'm actually really excited about this now, and I plan to read a lot of classics this year. I'm really, really looking forward to that. So please leave me a comment down below and let me know if you've read this book and what your thoughts on it were, or what Jane Austen novel I should pick up next. I was thinking about picking up Pride and Prejudice just because it is so popular, but if you think I should pick up another one, please leave me a comment down below. But I think that's it for the day, guys, and I'll see you all again very soon. Happy reading. Bye.